Board of Examiners come to order.
Thank you, Governor. And for the record, we have all three members present here, Governor, Attorney General, and Secretary of State. On our Board of Examiners consent agenda, we have the minutes from last month. Item number 2 is from the Office of Emergency Management. This is, there was 2 incidents. And then item number 3 is from the Department of Administration. This is a recognition of assignment. This is for the Council for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing lease here in Boise, and that is our consent agenda for today.
Something. Governor, I move that we approve this consent agenda as presented.
Seconded, we approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Consent agenda has been adopted.
And thank you, Governor and board members. On our informational agenda, we have item number 4 is from the Office of the Attorney General. This is a report of special deputy appointments for the second quarter of fiscal year 25. And then item number 5 is from the State Insurance Fund. And that concludes our informational agenda and our agenda for today.
Very good. Then move we adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are adjourned. Renee, can we start now? Or do we have to wait?
Now when I turn them on.
What time is this posted?
9:30.
All right. Okay. Board of Land Commissioners come to order. Director, welcome.
Governor, land board members, good morning. This is the regular meeting of the State Board of Land Commissioners for Tuesday, February 18th, 2025. And we did not have a meeting in January with the legislature starting up and kind of a light agenda, but I did not get to make some important introductions of 2 members of my executive leadership team. So wanted to introduce Michelle Anderson, who you know. Michelle promoted to our deputy director position for policy administration. She was our operations division administrator. And then Julia Lau is our new division administrator for forestry and fire. And she's also our state forester. So very excited to have both of them in their positions on the team. So we'll jump into the agenda here, starting with timber sales. In January, the Department of Land sold 6 endowment sales at auction, and all of the sales had competitive bidding. It represented a 36% and a $2.2 million upbid over the collective appraised values. About 23.5 million board feet of volume was sold in January for nearly $8.3 million and $352.46 a thousand. The department also sold a G&A timber sale on the Idaho Panhandle National Forest that saw an 84% and a $1.3 million upbid over the appraised value. On the next table, you can see the department is offering 7 sales and 18.3 million board feet of volume for auction during the month of February, valued at $2.6 million. One of those sales is a G&A sale. The current volume under contract on the next table is just over 465 million board feet and 161 active contracts, valued at $132.7 million. The next page, fiscal year to date, you can see we are sitting at $58.3 million in timber sale receipts, with another $8.4 million or so in projected income for February. Popping down to the FY25 timber sale program, 174.6 million board feet of volume is either sold or in process, and we are 93% of the way through our cedar pole target for FY25. On the graphs on pages 2 and 3, you can see we are exceeding the 3-year average for timber harvest receipts at 105%, and we're sitting at about 96% of the 3-year average for harvested volume. The graph on the bottom of page 3 tracks our monthly stumpage and price for the 6-month average price. And you can see there's been some slight improvements in the market. As I just reported, we've seen some good competition in our sales recently, but while there has been a nice uptick temporarily, there's still market factors in play, including high interest rates, inflation, slower housing starts, and high logging and hauling costs. These are things that we continue to watch closely and work to adapt to. On to attachment B, endowment transactions, including leases, permits, and real estate transactions. The department issued 24 instruments in the month of January in a mix of leases, lease assignments, and land use permits, and one easement, was granted. On page 2, in the non-timber revenue, you can see that while there are fluctuations in many of the lease revenue categories, we are on track with our revenue projections currently. And onto the permanent fund, revenue and royalties on page 4, you can see that there's a little bit more than $1.4 million in revenue that's been deposited into the permanent fund. And here we are tracking just a little bit below the 3-year average. Again, most of that income coming from sand and gravel operations. Governor, Land Board members, I will stop there to see if there's any questions.
Questions?
Governor.
Good. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Governor and Director. Back on the timber sales, there's listed one endowment sale did not sell. It was a third attempt. Is that the Big Creek? It looked like, looking at the map, that one did not sell. Do we have a good understanding of why and kind of what's next then with that?
Yeah, Governor, Mr. Controller, you're correct that did not sell after the third attempt. What I do know is that some industry reps have told our staff that the sale was not big enough, given that the road developments that are needed. The industry said that development credits were not sufficient. Logging costs were low due to those developments needed to harvest the sale. But we felt that the prices and the logging costs were adequate. We continue to have conversations with potential purchasers. Next steps, we'll evaluate the sale, the composition of the sale. We may include this in a future sale, just expand a particular sale to include this. There's also an option to do a non-competitive direct sale, since again, we did offer the sale for three opportunities and it did not sell. So we continue to evaluate that one.
Governor, one more.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Governor and Director. Also on the stumpage in the 6-month average, over the last couple of years, we've always had that inland composite lumber price, the green line. It's not on here this time. Is there just anything on that, why that's removed from the graph here?
Yeah, and Governor and Mr. Controller, had a conversation with staff about this one. That was to get that information. Apparently that was a very expensive subscription that we did not renew. We didn't feel that it was necessary to pay the kind of money for that subscription for that data. We can continue to get that data in other ways. It's just not on here at the current time. So it was a cost savings measure.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
While we're on this graph, Mr. Miller, just as a learning moment for me, why does on that the IDL stumpage price trend, why is the fluctuation so much?
Governor and Madam Superintendent, it kind of looks like a echocardiogram, doesn't it? Up and down there. Lots of different fluctuations based on, for example, complexity of a particular sale, logging operations, distance to market, composition of the sale. Other market factors really cause that particular line to fluctuate the way it does. So lots of variation there. It's that line has been that way forever, just based on those things I just mentioned.
For the questions.
Question.
Good. Go ahead.
You mentioned in an answer to the controller that you're going to do now you could do a non-competitive sale. Can you describe that? That's new to me, and how that works, and what are there parameters or guidelines that we have to follow when we do that?
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and Mr. Attorney General. I'm going to throw this one out to Mr. Elbin, if he's able to answer that one quickly. So, thanks, Jim.
Identify yourself for the record.
Yes, sir. Morning, Governor, members of the Land Board. For the record, my name is James Elbin. I'm the Trust Lands Division Administrator. And I have to correct the director. We wouldn't sell a no competitive sale for that size of a.
It's always good to counteract your costs.
It's a safe space, Jim.
So what they'll do, they could, if there's disease problems there, they could go to a salvage sale and go to lower minimums, but we would still invite competition at the auction.
Okay.
Governor,
That's the last time you get called up. Continue, Director.
Governor, I learned something new every day from your staff, so I stand corrected. Thanks, Jim. So, Governor, Land Board members, we'll move on to the quarterly the Land Bank aging report. If I can find it here in my notes. This is attachment C. You can see that with interest, there's about $85.5 million currently in the land bank. We did have some recent deposits in the second quarter of FY25 to the tune of about $16.2 million. If you bump up to the upper right-hand corner, you can see about $8.2 million is set to expire in the first half of FY26. We are still looking at potential acquisitions that meet or exceed our hurdle rates, where we can invest in timberlands as well as other opportunities. As we've discussed in the past, that Lewiston Seed Orchard is something that remains a priority for us to consider. So $85.5 million is a good, healthy amount of money in the land bank. As customary, as it stands right now, and I'll talk a little bit about a piece of legislation that's circulating in the State House, but every deposit into the land bank sets a 5-year clock for us to either make an acquisition that meets or exceed our hurdle rates, or that money rolls into the permanent fund. The land board can also make a decision at their discretion to move any amount of money into the permanent fund at any time. So happy to stand for questions.
Governor.
Go ahead.
Dustin, can you elaborate on what projects you have in the queue in terms of a specific, looking at what you highlighted, that $8 million that's set to expire in about a year from now? Are there projects that we're looking at for using that $8 million?
Yeah, Governor and Mr. Secretary, I'll either have Jim or Roger talk about the acquisition pipeline report if they're ready for that. Jim, I'm calling you up again. I don't know why.
You're going to correct them again?
Not this time. Good morning. For the record, I'm Tim Elvin, Trust Land Division Administrator. So it's pretty much with any timber landowner that's out there. We're looking at properties, but formally, we don't have any 100% agreements in place, and those are sometimes protected by NDA. So I can't get into specifics here.
Governor, I guess at a later date, can we meet just so I can have
Sure.
a better understanding, or a report to the board members, just what is being evaluated?
You can do that.
Director.
Hey, Governor, Land Board members, if there's no further questions on the land bank, we can move on to attachment D. This is a current legislative summary. The first page there just lists our rule dockets for IDL pending rules. We had a hearing in the House last week. With the hearing, there's also an agency update. I guess I either talked too much or they asked a lot of questions, and so that took up a lot of the time in the House. And so we didn't get through all the rules. We're scheduled to go back in front of the House Resources Committee tomorrow to go through the rest of the rules. And then we will meet with the Senate Resources Committee on the 26th. Turn the page there, just a couple of things to highlight. Both the Department of Lands and EFIB had their budget hearing on February 11th in front of the Joint Finance and Appropriations Committee. And it's yet to be determined when the actual budget setting hearing will occur. Dropping down there to other legislation, a couple of bills to mention. House Bill 129, Land Bank Fund. What this bill does, it extends the time frame for the use of land bank funds from 5 years to 10 years. That's really all that bill does. But again, the land board has the discretion to move money into the permanent fund at their pleasure whenever you all feel it's necessary. So we're tracking that bill. The next one, Senate Bill 1062. This bill is in relation to some challenges, I guess, that we've been experiencing up in the Island Park area related to some of our recreational leases. This is a response from the legislature. We've been working with the legislature to address some of the concerns there to ensure that we are producing income off of that very expensive ground up there in Island Park, making tweaks to these operations, yet apparently there's still some concerns out there. So what this bill does is it requires the land board provide notice to the county commissioners when an agreement is signed for the use of state lands. It's pretty customary that we do coordinate with and have conversations with the county commissioners. A bigger issue here is the requirement in this bill that certain use types, leases, permits, et cetera, for commercial uses be compliant with local planning and zoning ordinances. So that's one we're trying to navigate right now with the sponsors of the bill. Right now, there's a few things that are really don't need to be compliant with the local planning and zoning ordinances, like grazing, conservation leases, mineral leases. But there is a requirement that we work with, and we, where practicable, we are compliant with P&Z. So we believe that in that statute, we are keeping an eye on those local planning and zoning regulations, having the conversations. But this one would make everything a requirement. So we're having conversations with the sponsors of that bill right now and trying to work through that. The other one to mention here is House Bill 17 from the Department of Insurance. And this is a recommendation from the governor's wildfire report. So given really the length and intensity of what we're experiencing with wildfire seasons in Idaho and the Western United States, the growth in the wild and urban interface, more people moving to the state, home insurers have been dropping coverage for a lot of homeowners in fire-prone areas in the West. I'm sorry about that, Madam Chair. But this bill creates what this does, this bill creates a wildfire risk mitigation and stabilization pool and a board. And this is modeled off of other programs in other states. This bill would also provide grants to homeowners for home hardening projects and ensuring that their homes are more resistant to wildfire. And it also focuses on the use of non-general fund sources to stabilize the property insurance market in Idaho. So those are just a few things to note and things that we're tracking right now. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, Governor.
Questions? Continue.
Okay, Governor. We'll move on to item E in your materials. This is the Resource Protection Assistance Report, and I'm going to bring up Shannon Cholette to provide this update.
Welcome.
Governor Lamboard, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. My name is Shannon Cholette. I'm the Division Administrator for MNOG, and I'm here to present the biennial RPA report. The Navigable Waterways Program administers encroachment permits, submerged land leases, easements, and disclaimers of interest. The Navigable Waterways Program is self-supported through a dedicated account. Instrument activity through fiscal year 2025 is shown in Table 1 on page 1. In the past 6 months, IDL granted temporary permits to 68 boat garage owners that lease space at Hager'n State Park, enabling those owners to meet the Idaho Parks and Recs deadline to move their boat garages from the park by December 31st of 2024 and have time to find another location. These boat garage owners now have up to 3 years to find a new location for their boat garages and obtain an encroachment permit from IDL. IDL generated about $425,000 from the navigable waterways for the first half of fiscal year 2025. The dedicated fund for this program exceeds $2 million as shown in figure 1 on page 2. The Regulatory Minerals Program administers surface mining reclamation plans, dredge and placer permits, and abandoned mine land projects. The Regulatory Minerals Program is supported through a mix of general and dedicated funds. Concerning perpetual oil resources, Stibnite Mine in Valley County. IDL is currently reviewing 2 required application submittals for the Stibnite Mine. The first application describes the tasks and anticipated costs for the cyanidization facility permanent closure plan. The permanent closure plan is a component of the overall reclamation plan. IDL also received the reclamation plan and cost estimate from Perpetua in early February. The agency review period for both applications will end on or about April 1st, 2025. IDL has entered an agreement with Stantec as a third-party contractor to assist in the cost estimate review process. Concerning Thompson Creek molybdenum mine, Custer County, IDL approved the revised Phase 8 reclamation plan in December 2024. This allows Thompson Creek to move ahead with the Phase 8 mining activities. Pre-stripping activities commenced in spring of 2025, and Thompson Creek anticipates mining and mill startup in the first quarter of 2025. Phase 8 mining will extend the mine life by 4 to 5 years. Concerning Integra Resources, De La Mar Mine, Hawaii County, in April 2024, BLM issued a completeness letter confirming adequate baseline site characterization to start the NEPA process. IDL's effort in this step included participation in interagency meetings and review and approval of the soils and waste rock characterization baseline studies. Concerning Liberty Gold Black Pine Mine in Cassia County, Liberty Gold enters the preliminary stages of a mine planning and is proactive in coordinating with state and federal agencies. An MOU, or Memorandum of Understanding, was recently signed by IDL along with cooperators, U.S. Forest Service, BLM, DEQ, and OEMR. The mine plan of operations is expected in fourth quarter of 2025. IDL currently administers about 1,580 mine sites covered by reclamation plans and 26 covered by dredge and placer permits. The mines are presented in Table 2 on page 5 by category, and Table 3 on page 5 had historical plan numbers. Mine operators are eligible to provide bonding through traditional methods or the Bond Assurance Fund. Tables 4 and 5 on pages 5 and 6 list the acres and bond amounts currently in place for different types of mining operations. Created in 2006, the Bond Assurance Fund provides another reclamation bonding option for small operators on private state lands. Table 6 on page 6 has details from the fiscal year 2025 Bond Assurance Fund billing, and Figure 2 on page 7 illustrates the revenue, expenditures, and amounts for this fund. The Abandoned Mines Land Program, or AML, is funded by receiving 34% of Idaho's mine license tax, a 1% net tax of Idaho's mining industry, excluding sand and gravel as described in Idaho Code 47-1205. IDL's share of income for the first half of fiscal year 25 was about $7,100. Table 7 on page 7 lists the projects worked on in the first half of fiscal year 25. And Figure 3 on page 8 illustrates the revenue, expenditures, and balances for this fund. I now stand for any questions.
So how are we going to get this thing? Looks like it's almost headed upside down.
Governor, yes, that is correct. If you go to that graph there that you're speaking of on Figure 3, page 8, you can see there that
I know what the problem is. What's the solution?
the solution. Well, there is. We've been working in unison with some different agencies. There is a new House Bill 226 here that's been currently being proposed and will be reviewed across the street, well, across several streets now. And this is this is likely to start several conversations. Currently, we've been working, on solutions with Idaho Geologic Survey on different paths forward to kind of shore up this fund.
So if it goes underwater, then who pays the cost of this?
Well, if it goes underwater, Governor Landboard, in essence, we just would not be able to perform any more abandoned mine land projects. So we would have to have a hiatus for whatever term that we would be underwater in simplistic terms.
Good, Director?
Governor, just quickly, and I appreciate Shannon mentioning that particular bill and interactions with the Idaho Mining Association. They're currently working on a solution here to help with this particular program, where the way I've seen the language is that more money would come to the Abandoned Mine Lands Fund for the reclamation projects for, there's nearly 9,000, less than 9,000 abandoned mines out there that we are required to close. And so this would provide more money into that abandoned mine lands fund and also set up some structure for prioritization for closures of those mines. So it's definitely a step in the right direction, and I appreciate the industry being at the forefront of this.
Question?
General.
Where's that money going to come from? And are we taking it from another funds? Are we robbing Peter to pay Paul, or is that new revenues coming in? Can you explain that a little bit?
Governor, Mr. Attorney General, the way I've understood the language to read is that we would be provided a larger percentage of the mine license tax that would go into the abandoned mine lands fund.
Would be the general fund.
Yeah, so
So
Shannon, I don't know the percentage of that.
Governor, Attorney General, Director, Land Board. It's currently set at 66% general fund and 34% to the abandoned mine reclamation fund. The proposal is to go 50% to the general fund and 50% to the AML fund. So it would decrease one by 16% and increase the other by that 16%.
So Peter is the general fund.
yes.
Paul is the abandoned mine license fund.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Further questions?
Governor.
Go ahead.
I don't know that it's specifically on this particular issue, but the conversation sparks this question, recognizing all kinds of changes coming on the federal side of things. Do we expect, I mean, I guess we expect that there will be changes, but knowing that the federal government has a part in many of the operations when it comes to mining and other things, do we see any of those changes immediately impacting the business that we do on the state level?
The short answer is yes.
Okay, but we don't know
It's
what that looks like.
all over the place.
Similar to
The new
education.
Interior Secretary is very interested in increasing the speed at which we permit mines. So,
Thank you.
Okay,
okay, thank you.
thank you. All right, Governor, now on to the Endowment Fund Investment Board.
Mr. Ansel.
Governor, members of the Land Board, good morning. As you may recall, last month, the portfolio was down close to 3%. As the Fed indicated that the progress with inflation had basically stalled out at about 3%. Their goal is 2%. And so while they cut interest rates by 0.25% in December, just the message that they're on hold spooked the markets. The focus now seems to have really shifted toward fiscal policy and trying to understand the policies that are being put in place by President Trump and Secretary Treasury Bessent. Certainly those policies are much more pro-growth. We've seen a lot of positive momentum in the market. And as you can see, the portfolio rebounded, was up 3% during the month, which left us up 6.3% fiscal year to date. And through Friday, we're up 7.5%. So we're off to a good start in the first half of the fiscal year. We did have a couple of moments where the market had some pretty significant volatility. The first was when President Trump indicated he was imposing tariffs, and the initial plan was 25% with Canada and Mexico and 60% with China. However, the tariffs with China and Mexico were postponed as negotiations took place over immigration and stopping illegal flow of drugs. And China's tariffs were at least initially set at 10%. The market rebounded right back after that happened. The other area was a Chinese company, DeepSeek. It's an artificial intelligence company. They became the most downloaded AI app, exceeded the downloads for ChatGPT, and also showed that they could perform as well, if not better, on certain metrics. And the Chinese company indicated that they had done so with some, older generation NVIDIA chips. As I think the U.S. government has restricted the flow of the high-end chips to China. And so there was some concern that NVIDIA sales would slow, that we would slow down building these huge data centers to support AI. However, things have come back. I think there's a feeling now that if we can bring down the cost of some of these AI apps, I think that will help the market, help adoption, help grow demand on the AI side. So that whole thing is yet to be determined how that will work out, but we have seen some recovery in the tech stocks. So overall, I think we're in a good place for the fiscal year. We're well reserved. We did complete the transition from Western Asset Management to Dodge & Cox on the fixed income side. And I should also indicate that in our board meeting last week, the board approved hiring Clearwater Advisors for a portion of the state insurance fund portfolio. So we won't be using them, at least at this point, in the endowment fund, but we'll be using them in the state insurance fund portfolio. We also welcomed 2 new board members, Senator Jim Woodward and Representative James Petsky. So Governor, we appreciate that your nomination of them to our board, and they were able to attend their first board meeting last week. With that, I think that concludes my remarks, and I'll stand for any questions.
We like green rather than red.
We like green too. I like green too.
Further questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, Governor, Land Board members, onto the consent agenda. Item 3 is the live auction mineral lease E700065 presented by Jason Laney.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Governor, members of the Land Board. My name is Jason Laney, the leasing section manager with the department. On December 18th, 2024, the department held an auction for mineral lease E700065. It's a 160-acre lease for the extraction of basalt. The lease is in Jerome County, roughly 8 miles northwest of Jerome. Maps of the lease location can be found in attachment 1. The lease has a 10-year term and a royalty rate of $1.20 a short ton. There were 2 auction participants for this lease, and a high bid of $10,000 was received from the Northside Canal Company. Detailed auction results are in attachment 2. Idaho code provides that the land board has the right to reject any bid made at a live auction where fraud or collusion are present, or for any other reason at the sole discretion of the board. The department completed the auction in accordance with existing statutes and procedures and did not observe any indication of fraud or collusion. The department recommends awarding mineral lease E700065 to the high bidder, Northside Canal Company. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Motion. Oh, no, it's in the consent agenda. We don't need a motion. Thank you.
Yeah, Governor, item 4 is the approval of the draft minutes from our December 17th, 2024 regular meeting.
Governor,
Controller.
I move approval and adoption of the consent agenda.
Now we need a motion. Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. You've adopted the consent agenda, the regular agenda.
All right, Governor. Yes, onto the regular agenda. Item 5 is related to funding that came through the IDL budget the current fiscal year from the last legislative session to assist the Idaho Division of Veteran Services to purchase ground in the Dry Creek Cemetery area for expansion of interment lands for our veterans. And so we'll bring up Mark Schempel, who's the Chief Administrator from the Division of Veteran Services, to present on this item.
Welcome, Administrator. Identify yourself for the record.
Thank you, Governor, Land Board members. My name is Mark Champel. I'm the Chief Administrator for the Idaho Division of Veteran Services. And I'm here today to seek approval and support for the purchase of approximately 15.5 acres of land from Dry Creek Cemetery for the use of a future expansion of the Boise Veterans Cemetery. This land is the only viable land that is available for us to expand the Boise Veterans Cemetery. Without this land, we will use up all existing land in approximately 8 years and would no longer be able to inter veterans or their spouses at the Boise Veterans Cemetery. So that's why this land purchase is so critical. Back last legislative session, Governor was kind enough to provide $3.95 million in general funds. Legislature approved that as part of the Department of Land's budget, specifically earmarked for the purchase of this land. And again, I would ask that you support this purchase so that we can continue to expand our operations there. With the purchase of this land, we should be able to continue honorably interring our veterans and their spouses for approximately the next 40 years. I stand for any questions.
Questions?
Quick question.
Go ahead.
Great. I love the cemetery. My mom's actually buried down in Dry Creek, so I go there often. And is that above, behind where exactly is that parcel? Is it higher or is it lower? Where is it?
Governor,
Mark.
Attorney General. So it's actually on the lower level and it's approximately to the east of the current cemetery.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'll be on the lower level. All the upper levels are too hilly. We can't use any of that land. The federal government doesn't meet requirements.
Further questions?
Governor,
Go ahead.
for motion, I move that we adopt and approve this recommendation to approve the land acquisition on behalf of the Idaho Division of Veteran Services.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it and is been adopted.
Okay, Governor, moving on to item 6 in your materials. This item concerns the FY 26 budget recommendation for the Department of Lands. I mentioned we went before JFAC on the 11th. Lots of good questions, and we have yet to know when the budget setting is going to occur. But at the Land Board staff briefing last week, the Land Board staff asked that we seek a letter of support from the Board of Land Commissioners supporting the IDL budget recommendation, and then send that letter to the members of the Joint Finance and Appropriations Committee. As you know, there continues to be a big focus on the IDL Wildland Fire Program. The board approved the line items in our budget last fall or late summer, and the governor made some of his own recommendations during his budget setting process for all the executive agencies. Some of these changes include pre-funding the fire suppression account to $100 million to ensure the funding is there for a continued aggressive fire response from firefighters at the Department of Lands. Funding for additional satellite fire detection services. That's huge for us. As you know, the board approved the fire detection cameras. Early detection is critical for our response. This takes us another level with the satellite fire detection. Again, early detection equates to a rapid response and keeping those fires small. And as a way to focus on our men and women on the fire line, the recruitment and retention firefighter bonus of $1 million, I'm sorry, would be significant. $1 million for the wildland firefighter bonuses. Governor and Land Board members, the budget recommendations are in alignment with the agency-wide strategic plan, the foundational plans for the fire program, our current strategic planning efforts that are currently underway for the fire program, as well as the governor's wildfire roundtable recommendations that were finalized last year. So there is a draft letter of support included in the binder. The recommendation is for the board members to sign a letter of support for the IDL FY 26 budget recommendation, and that the Department of Lands will deliver this letter to the Joint Finance and Appropriations Committee. And if approved, Governor Renee has a clean copy, I believe, with her to collect signatures after we adjourn. So I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So, how much did it cost last year for fire suppression?
Governor, Mr. Attorney General, right now our numbers are $55 million, roughly $55 million is what suppression cost. That does not include all of the cost shares that are yet to be determined, or that's all getting reconciled right now, the cost shares with our federal partners. It takes several months post-fire season to dial that in. But what we know is at a minimum, $55 million was the price tag for the state last year.
Okay. And follow up, and that cost included some federal lands also, correct?
Governor, Mr. Attorney General, yes, lands that were protected in our offset agreement with the federal government, yes, that did.
Okay, so another question. So I do have a question about a local newspaper that I don't always trust quoted you, and I just want to understand a little bit because it said that if we took over federal lands, we couldn't afford it. That's what you were quoted as saying. But right now we're in our state lands and even some of our responsibilities with federal lands, we're able to afford it at the same time that we're making profit off of our endowment lands. So can you explain to me a little bit what the difference would be?
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Attorney General, and certainly is a challenging question. I'll do my best to answer that. Um, the cost to fight fires for the Forest Service this year, and it's just a number that I've heard. And what I was told, about $300 million is what the price tag was to fight fires in
the
Idaho,
state of Idaho.
just for the Forest Service alone. Given, again, they've got a large estate to manage and fight fire in, and they had significant fire costs this summer. So, and then the southern part of the state certainly saw most of the lightning activity. A lot of that occurred on federal land. So, we can continue to work with our federal partners to get a more detailed number on that. But the number that's been shared with me was about $300 million is what it cost the Forest Service to fight fires this last summer. Certainly the way we manage is to focus on forest health, timber production in those areas where we produce timber and want to set up our timber sales. It generally costs us less to fight fires in those areas because they are well managed. There's less fuel loading. We're taking out the ladder fuels, better roads. We can get in there and be aggressive on those fires and get them out. And certainly it's a little bit different for the federal government, given their requirements and rules and regulations that they need to operate under. So their fire bills were big this year. We again focus on the timberlands, the managed timberlands, where we are required to fight those fires aggressively, and really work to minimize costs. So I don't know what the price tag would be for the state to fight those fires. But it was an interesting number to hear that the Forest Service spent about $300 million this last summer on fire suppression. Kind of staggering.
So if I hear you correctly, follow up, under state management practices, we would pay less because we manage the lands better. We would also be making profits off of some of those lands. So we don't really know what the ultimate cost is and what the benefit would be to the state. Is that correct?
Governor, Mr. Attorney General, yes. If those lands came to the state, we would manage them just as we do our other endowment lands for maximizing revenue for the endowment beneficiaries. We'd manage the timber stands for production, minimize fuels, ensure that we had access into those places to take care of insects and disease issues, access for fire suppression. And certainly that could yield more revenue through timber sales and other activities for the endowments.
Thank you.
All right.
Governor, real quick.
Go ahead.
The current balance, what is the current balance in the fire suppression account fund?
Governor, Mr. Controller, about $36 million is the current balance in the suppression account. We do have outstanding obligations. So most of that money, a good portion of that money is obligated. And without pre-funding the account, we're looking at somewhere between $12 and $13 million for next fiscal year, FY26, which really is not a lot of money even though we do things relatively inexpensively. Fire is a very expensive thing to do. Fire suppression costs a lot of money, but that does not leave a lot of money in the account for suppression. We want to avoid similar situations like what occurred in Oregon. The Oregon Department of Forestry ran out of money partway through fire season, and they couldn't pay their contractors. Several weeks went by and they weren't able to pay their contractors. So they certainly had to seek funds from their emergency board, and then the legislature in Oregon the governor called a special session to bring the legislature together to appropriate some additional funds. So very, very challenging for the state of Oregon. Pre-funding the suppression account has been a great thing for us, knowing that the money is there. We can pay our contractors and do what we do best, fight these fires aggressively, keep them small, and minimize costs.
Director, if when you get all your bills paid and do your accrual accounting, is it fair to say that the amount left won't pay the fixed costs for we won't have any money? I mean, our fixed costs, we had a couple of years ago, we had a very, very, very light fire year, and our fixed cost was almost $20 million with hardly any fires.
Yeah, Governor, that is correct. We do have a lot of fixed costs, upfront costs that are paid out of that account. Particularly our contracted resources, our big contracts, our aviation contracts, which are very necessary pieces of equipment that we need to keep at the ready for us. And so you're absolutely right, Governor. That would put us in a challenging situation to have to pay those upfront costs, those fixed costs, and not have a lot left in the account for suppression.
So just real quick with that. So the piece with 35 million is in the fund now. What the recommendation, the proposal from the Department of Lands and the governor's recommendation for their budget was to supplement 60 million into this current FY25 and then 40 million ongoing. Is that?
Yeah, Governor, Mr. Controller, that's correct.
Well, Governor, I move that this is just a letter to support and to help. I'll make the motion, I guess, and then speak to a comment. I move that we, as a board, that we approve in this motion to support the department's budget recommendation before JFAC and to send this letter to them.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Questions? Do you want to speak to your motion?
Governor, I just appreciate the opportunity being able to support this and have this, seeing what's taken place other states around us, neighboring states, and I think this is great insurance. Again, all this is a letter of our support to JFAC. They still have their direction to do what they want, but I think this is wise and wisdom to go forward to have this. So thank you.
Governor, I'll just add as a comment supporting the motion that, we already supported the budget back in August. Obviously, this was a significant fire season, and it doesn't seem like it's getting any better in the near future. So I think anything we can do to modernize our efforts is good for the program overall.
Right. Further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. You guys have it.
Okay, Governor, onto the information agenda. There's one item here, item 7, and this is a presentation regarding modernizing our wildland fire operations facilities. And we'll bring up Michelle Anderson, Deputy Director, Policy Administration, to present on this.
Welcome.
Good morning,
In your
Governor.
new job.
Good morning, Governor, Land Board members. For the record, my name is Michelle Anderson. I'm the Deputy Director for Policy and Administration for the Department of Lands. And I'm here today to talk to you about the department's facilities and specifically our facilities for our wildfire suppression resources in the state. Also want to make sure that I give credit where credit is due. I am representing on behalf of Derek Reese today, our facilities manager who could not be here. This is all his great work. In December, we gave the board an update regarding the department's planning efforts for our strategic plan for fire suppression for the state and how we are going to move forward with that. In a nutshell, the department has been operating at the edge of its capabilities during periods with multiple ignitions, extended attack, and long duration fire seasons. As you're all very well aware, growth in the state has been rapid. The department has taken over additional responsibilities in wildfire suppression. The environment has become increasingly complex. Our fire seasons are longer, our fires are bigger, and they're happening more frequently. So as part of our fire planning effort, our vision statement is to meet our future wildfire challenges through effective initial attack and robust incident management capabilities. And one of the goals for our strategic planning is to build adaptive infrastructure to address the increasing fire intensity. Part of that requires us to develop a comprehensive fire facilities plan. So why is this needed now? Well, our facilities have not kept pace with the growth and the department's responsibilities, our programs, our personnel, and our equipment. Our current facilities are increasingly inadequate to meet these growing needs and the demands of an emergency response and public safety. So the solution that the department has identified is to construct facilities that will support fire operations in IDL districts with the highest need. Where we have landed is with a pre-engineered metal building slab on grade, which would be scalable to meet the individual district needs. We have a prototype of this facility is under construction currently at our St. Mary's office. And this would allow us to have a consistent design, which is also reduces costs. This is the architect's rendition of this facility that is currently underway in our St. Mary's location. And this is the interior footprint of that facility as well. And here is this map shows our districts with the highest need. And I just want to make sure to point out that we have captured this as highest need because we feel that these are our districts with our immediate need, but this is not the entire need. Eastern Idaho, where we recently took back a district responsibility in that part of the state, where we have not had a presence as far as fire suppression for many years. The Salmon River Canyon, that's been an increase in our district boundaries. It's a wide expanse, and we're very extended as far as how we can respond to wildfires in that part of the country. Our Ponderosa office in Deary, our Southwest office here in Boise off State Street, a station for our helipack resources, our Maggie Creek office in Kamei, our Ponderay Lakes office in Sandpoint, and our the interagency fire cache in Coeur d'Alene. So how would we do this? Well, we've identified 3 different alternatives of options for how we could address quite such a large need. Alternative 1 is to continue the present course, which is to apply for public building funds projects through the Public Building Fund Advisory Commission. Alternative 2 would be to seek a direct appropriation for facilities construction. And alternative 3 is to a partnership with the Idaho State Building Authority. So alternative 1, Idaho Permanent Building Funds. This is currently how we have been seeking capital improvement projects for our facilities along with all other state agencies. This is capital improvement projects are reviewed and determined by the commission. And then all those projects are overseen by Division of Public Works. We've had a great success working with the Division of Public Works. They've taken well care of us. As you can see from fiscal year 6 through 25, the department has requested over 20 million in public building funds and would have been granted 7 million. It's the pot of money that all agencies and universities in the state seek funding from for facility needs. So there's a lot of hands looking for funding from here. Alternative 2 would be for the department to seek a direct appropriation in our budget for facilities construction. That would be a rather unprecedented appropriation request. Would likely require multiple fiscal year appropriations and also likely require encumbrances. The third alternative, partner with the building authority. Benefits of working with the building authority is to partner with an experienced organization. Estimated project completion window within 7 years. And ISBA is then responsible for the contracting and the administration of the project. So just to elaborate a little bit about the Idaho State Building Authority, this is not an avenue that the department has pursued before, but as part of our due diligence, we have had discussions with the Building Authority our understanding of how to move forward with the building authority requires a concurrent resolution authorizing the agency to partner with the building authority. The agency and then the building authority are then work together to develop design alternatives and select a construction manager, general contractor. ISBA then issues tax-free bonds to finance the project. They are then responsible for contracting and project administration. The building authority also carries the financing until the building is complete. The building authority then leases the building back to the partner agency. Once the bond note is satisfied, ownership of the building reverts to the title holder. So what are our next steps? Well, next steps for the department are for us I pointed out what our highest need is, but we also need to determine what the entire need. This also includes having discussions with our timber protective associations as well. Also, we need to determine how much will this cost? And then also, how should we pay for this? And then also any sort of necessary legal analysis to help us in moving forward. That's all I have for you today as information item, but I am happy to stand for questions.
Timeline, Michelle, is it, I assume we're not going to do a concurrent resolution this year. So you're talking about doing all the things you just showed up on that last slide. And then it'll come back to us, and then it'll have to go to the legislature, and Wayne and his shop, you'll work with them. Is that what you're anticipating?
Governor, members of the land board, that is the correct process. I do believe it is possible that we could seek a concurrent resolution in the current session, although that would be extremely ambitious.
That's correct. Further question?
Quick question.
Go ahead,
Go.
General.
Thank you. I don't have that presentation on in my packet. I don't know if it came. If it could you just email that to us?
Governor, Attorney General, absolutely. We'll get that to all members.
Thank you.
Governor, I know this is a far-fetched question, but the Department of Fish and Game Foundation help other agencies out like they help their own?
I think they're kind of tapped out.
All right.
Well, the issue is, the long-term cash flow. You've built $5 million worth of buildings for the cash flow. Because we're talking about what'll these bonds, Wayne, be 15 years, 10 years? Okay. It'd be nice if the buildings last as long as the debt.
We'll try to exceed that target, sir.
Yeah, we'll just have to look at the cash flow. All right, I guess it was informational. We'll get more information.
Thank you.
But that would be very ambitious.
Governor, if there's no further questions, that concludes the agenda for the day.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are adjourned.